If I was to say, think of an actor who's been in the films Shallow Hal, Men in Black, and The Sopranos, are you going to think of Tony Robbins? Probably not. And yet he's been in all of those. He was even in an episode of Family Guy when Peter says, "You sound like someone who was lost at sea and told not to drink seawater, but then drank seawater." Tony's as much a cultural phenomenon as a self-help guru. And today I'm going to look into his human design chart to see how he became America's #1 life and business coach, how he's involved with over 100 businesses, and how he built over a $600 million net worth. Not to mention how he flies around on a private jet that's big enough for 150 passengers, except Tony had it converted so it only had space for 18. Tony grew up in, let's say, a dysfunctional family environment. His parents divorced when he was 7 years old, and his mum was addicted to booze and drugs. He says it was an abusive upbringing, but at school things were different. At school, his classmates called him Mr. Solution because he was so focused on getting things done. When he was 10 years old, his science teacher didn't like the way Tony was always talking in class and punished him for it. Really angry about being told what to do, Tony spent the entire weekend reading the science textbook, and when he went back to class, he'd shout out the answers to every single question. That didn't exactly make him popular with his teacher. In fact, Tony got thrown out of that class. Not long afterwards, he found himself working at a local LA newspaper called the Progress Bulletin. He tried to get interviews with teams like the LA Dodgers and the LA Rams by writing to them. Not surprisingly, they didn't get back to Tony, but that didn't stop him from writing every single day. And eventually, he wore his guests down and he'd get the interviews. He was only 13 at that time. Turns out that he was so good at interviewing that a year or so later, he was hired by a TV station to be their evening sports presenter. He went home and told his mum, but she wouldn't let him take the job on the grounds that his ego was going to be too big and he needed to learn some humility. But it's pretty clear that Tony just does not take no for an answer. So Tony had a track record of rubbing people up the wrong way, and one of the most important episodes was just about to happen. Tony had attended a Jim Rohn seminar about success and was so excited about his potential that when he got home, he told his mum that he'd be president one day. His mum didn't like Tony having big ideas, and the conversation went from bad to worse. Eventually it got so out of hand that she snapped, "Okay, if you're so certain, then go out and do it on your own, without my help." Tony was only 16. He was thrown out with nothing more than $10 in his pocket. Once Tony had escaped from his abusive home, he jumped into a couple of sales jobs, one in telemarketing and the other selling music tapes, audio cassettes, door to door. Although he quit both because he didn't feel excited about either of them. Having been inspired by the Jim Rohn seminar, he went to work for him, selling motivational programs, and in his first month, Tony made $3,200. Even today, that wouldn't be a terrible salary, but for a teenager in the 70s, that was good money. The only problem was that although Tony had managed to get a 100% conversion rate from his customers, he'd been really forceful with his sales technique, which meant when the checks came in, only half the money cleared. You see, when a customer had said they didn't have the money, Tony just wouldn't take no for an answer. He assumed they'd be as determined as he was and find the money from somewhere, except they weren't, and they didn't. But Tony went over his sales technique and worked on a different approach. It didn't take long before Tony was the top salesman for Jim Rohn and was pulling in regular 10K months. Back then, that was great money, and Tony became a partner of Jim's. Tony not only had the job, but now he had the money and he had the flat. He had style, passion, and loads of charisma, all of which meant he was dating as many as 10 girls at a time. Which sounds great, right? Except there were some darker things going on in Tony's life. At this point, he's living in a tiny apartment, so small in fact that he has to wash his dishes in his bath because there's no kitchen. As a side note, Tony's the one who described the flat as tiny. It was still 40 square meters, and while that might have been small in LA, anywhere else like Tokyo, Hong Kong, or even London, that's a decent sized flat. Although Tony is over 2 meters tall, so maybe it felt super small to him. Okay, so his flat's small, but that's not all. He's feeling run down and burnt out. Any spare time he has, he's watching soap operas, and he's 15 kilos overweight. He's really feeling lost about what to do. So he quits working with Jim Rohn. And somehow he hears about something called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. He wants to find out more and takes himself to the lectures being given by Dr. Richard Bandler, one of the founding fathers of NLP. However, the lectures are only for psychologists and doctors, so Dr. Richard Bandler doesn't let Tony into the classes. Now, most people will give up here, but Tony had a saying that if you just get past 5 or 6 no's, you'll be rich in sales. And he applied that to Dr. Richard Bandler's classes. He'd listen outside the door, and over time he wore Dr. Richard Bandler down until he was invited into the classes to listen. And this is critical to Tony's success because he starts using the NLP techniques on people, anyone he can find, just to test if it works. And it does. It's not long before Tony starts getting paid for it, and he's able to charge $100 an hour, helping them get over depression, smoking, relationship problems, and anything else they need. He's using a combination of Jim Rohn's techniques and Dr. Richard Bandler's NLP. It's working so well, he starts charging $200 an hour, then $500 an hour. Around this time, Tony's doing a lot of radio in Canada. One night, a listener challenges Tony, calling him a fake. This caller ends up bringing a woman onto the show live and challenges Tony to treat her phobia live on air. Tony spends an hour with her and manages to cure her. This is a watershed moment because it silences his haters and gives him the confidence to go all in on his success coaching. So much so that he starts charging $5,000 an hour. From there, Tony starts building out seminars and programs designed around life and business coaching. He's written 6 international best-selling books. He owns a 5-star luxury resort in Fiji. He's got multiple businesses. He's coached celebrities like Oprah, presidents like Bill Clinton, and sports stars like Conor McGregor. He presents to 200,000 people a year, and it's fair to say he's built his life into a massive success. So now, I want to take a look at Tony's human design chart. I found his time online as 10 past 8 p.m, and that's what I've based his chart on here. So, he's a 6-2 profile. He's an emotional authority and a single definition. The 6-2 is called the role model hermit. As a conscious 6 line, you're going to learn through trial and error until the age of about 30. Then from 30 to 50, you step back and see things with a new perspective. Then after about the age of 50, you're able to use all that experience and open-mindedness to act as a role model. The unconscious 2 line is called the hermit. And with a 2 line, you're going to feel like you've got a natural genius to you. And not only will you feel it, but others will see it in you too. That means people are going to project onto you and want access to your knowledge and insights. But the 2 line's the hermit. So you'll want to hide away and master your craft. Being a 2 line is a balancing act. I'm going to go through 5 reasons for Tony's success and see how it fits in with his human design chart. First thing is that Tony's clearly an incredible coach. He used to charge $5,000 an hour, and that was back in the 80s, so I can't even imagine what he charged now. Taking a look at Tony's spleen, it's undefined. The spleen is the center of intuition, and through the spleen, you'll feel what's good or bad for you. And because of being given that signal in the moment, it's also the center of spontaneity. Each of the gates here are fear-driven, which makes sense because the spleen's always on the lookout for what's good or what's bad for you. I don't want to spend too much time going through each individual gate because this is about Tony, but consider 48, the gate of depth, is about the fear of inadequacy. 57, the gate of the gentle, is a fear of the future. 44, the gate of patterns, is a fear of the past. 50, the gate of values, is a fear of responsibility. 32, the gate of duration, is a fear of failure. 28, the gate of the player, is a fear of death. 18, the gate of improving, is a fear of authority. Now in Tony, his spleen is undefined, so your intuition is going to be much weaker compared to someone with a defined spleen. Being undefined is likely to amplify all the fears in the spleen, which could be distracting, although it's likely to mean you'll be a master at overcoming your fears, which will put you in a very strong position in life. But the real upside of the undefined spleen is that you'll be deeply connected with what's wrong with others, physically or emotionally. That's going to make you an incredible psychologist or coach, being able to understand people at a deep level. And in Tony's case, it would have helped him be a great salesman, because if you know how people feel, you can help them with what they need in their life. Looking closer at the spleen, Tony has gate 44, the gate of patterns. I think of this as the HR gate because you're a master at understanding people. You instinctively understand their abilities and what they need in life. Tony also has gate 50 in the spleen, the gate of values. With this gate, you lay down the rules and make sure people stick to them. But you're coming from a place of care and support. You want the best for people, including for their health and material benefit. Looking to the root and solar plexus, Tony has channel 1949. This is the channel of sensitivity. Having this channel is going to make you highly sensitive, and you're definitely not going to like being criticized. However, you'll also have a really warm and inviting personality. People will want to be around you because you'll feel calm and comforting to them. All of that's good, but the real benefit here is that you're going to intuitively understand the needs of people, and you'll be able to give support exactly when it's needed. In fact, you're going to be so good at this, you'll almost seem like a magician, and whatever you say is going to sound more important than anything anyone else says, so people will really listen to you. At one end of this channel in the solar plexus is gate 49, the gate of revolution. This is where knowing what people need comes from, and it also makes you want to tear down any unhealthy ways of doing things. Put all these together, and you've got someone who people want to be around because of the 1949. The 2 line in Tony's profile means people see him as someone who can help them with his knowledge. He's an expert at feeling into what people need with his undefined spleen, along with his 44 and 49 gates. And with his gate 50, he really wants people to change for the better. All of that stacks up as someone who really was designed to help people become the best version of themselves. The next thing is that Tony's been great at building relationships. He's a real relationship builder. Think about the trust he has to create almost instantly when dealing with people, either as a salesman early in his career or at one of his live programs where he only has a few seconds to connect with someone. And looking at his chart, there's a few reasons for this. Tony has the channel connecting his solar plexus to his will center. This is the 3740, the channel of community. This channel is all about relationships. You'll really love bringing friends and family or members of your community together. It'll feel great bringing people together, but also you want to help them. And when you do, you'll feel really good about yourself too. Meeting people face to face is really important to you. It's going to help you feel what the other person is about. You look for relationships that are built on mutual trust and respect, and you'll love doing business over a handshake. Someone asking you to sign an agreement or talking about payment is only showing that they don't trust you, and that's a red flag. Your word is more valuable than a signed document, and you want to work with people who treat you the same way. When you meet people who just want to take from you, that's their loss. You'll sense something's wrong, and you'll walk away without any sense of commitment. Going from the solar plexus to the sacral center is 659, the channel of connecting. With this channel, you're going to have real charm and a warm, open personality. You'll love going deep with relationships built on trust. And being connected to the sacral center, these relationships are going to be fertile. That can mean intimate sexual relationships, but it can also mean creative or business relationships. But whatever kind it is, the relationships you form are going to be productive. I heard of one woman who had the 659 as her only channel and ended up pregnant 3 times while on birth control. But that can be applied as much to business relationships as well. You'll need these to be deep relationships though, with a strong focus on respect and trust. Surface level is not going to cut it for you. Heading up to the G center, Tony has gate 25. This is the gate of innocence. This drives you to do everything from a place of love. You'll love everyone, no matter who they are. You'll even love yourself just as much as you love everyone and everything. It comes from a place of accepting and not judging. In terms of building relationships, it gives you the power to deeply sympathize with people. Now, let's take a look at Tony's incarnation cross. He's got the left angle cross of migration, the 3740, 535. This means you're here to help people build a new community, to show that they have a place where they can be accepted and grow. In Tony's case, since he was at the cutting edge of NLP and wanted to use it to help people, you can see how he created a new community for people. So Tony's designed for building healthy relationships. He's got the 3740 community channel that lights him up to bring people together. He's got the 659 channel of connecting, which makes him want to create strong relationships built on trust. That'll be highly rewarding emotionally and probably financially too. He's got gate 25, the gate of innocence, which means he doesn't judge anyone And his incarnation cross is designed to help build a new community for people. Everything is aligned for him to create strong relationships. The next thing I want to talk about is Tony's addictive personality. Now that might seem strange that it's something that's made him successful, but hear me out. You've already seen how Tony has an undefined spleen, and that can be great for connecting to people. However, it's also a source of not seeing what's good for you or what's bad for you. Looking over to his root center, Tony has gate 41, the gate of imagination. With this gate, you're looking out for new feelings and experiences. When you're in a good mental state, gate 41 is going to help you focus on what you really want to achieve so that you'll have whatever energy you need to achieve those goals. However, when you're out of balance, gate 41 is going to make you hungry for more all the time. More excitement, more experiences, more things. When you combine that unstoppable hunger with an undefined spleen, you've got no way of feeling what's bad for you. So you can see how that's a bad combination. And this is a combination that's often seen with addicts. Think about when Tony was living in his 40 square meter flat, doing well financially but hating his job. He was eating terribly, 15 kilos overweight, and watching way too much crappy TV. You can see how an undefined spleen in gate 41 would have been working against him. However, once he'd made the decision to change, to find work that lit him up, he was able to get his gate 41 on his side. Suddenly, instead of going down the path of self-destruction, he's fully energized to become a massively successful life and business coach. Things that can be so destructive when out of alignment can be your best friend when you're in a good state of mind. The next thing is what a force of power Tony is. For a start, he really unleashes that power when he speaks. Tony has all 4 of his motor centers activated, and they're all connected through his solar plexus to his throat. So it'll probably come as no surprise to hear that whereas most people talk at about 130 words a minute, Tony speaks at over 200 words a minute. He's someone who talks a lot. You've already seen he's got gate 41, which will definitely help him power through to whatever goal he's aiming for. Looking at his G center and sacral center, he's got the 1034 channel. This is the channel of survival. With this channel, you're going to be constantly improving yourself and building on your knowledge. It's going to make you strongly believe in yourself and also how right you are about everything. The 1034 is going to support you creating whatever resources you want in the material world. The channel of survival has gate 34 in the sacral, which is the gate of power. With this activated, you're going to have all the power you need to create whatever you want. You won't need anyone else's help. In fact, you'll have enough power, you'll be able to drag people over the finish line. That's going to be a very useful skill when you're trying to run a 50-hour seminar over a weekend. If you look at Tony's chart, all his defined centers are connected, which means that he's a single definition. And as a single definition, you're going to be very independent. You're going to be someone who won't need anyone else's help to get things done. Now, if you take a look at Tony's root center, he's got gate 54, the gate of ambition. You're going to have big ambitions and big financial goals. But luckily for you, this gate is known as the engine of business success, so you shouldn't have any problem reaching those goals. It isn't just about the material world though. Those big ambitions are going to drive you to grow spiritually too. In Tony's G center, he has gate 7, the gate of uniformity. This gate is going to make you a natural leader, to lead people to a better future where they can be responsible for themselves. So it's very empowering for the people around you. The line of this gate will determine what style of leader you are. With a line 1, you'll be a dictator. And I'd love to see if some famous dictators have this. With a 2 line, you'll be democratic and listen to people. With a 3 line, you'll be the anarchist, someone who wants to break rules to see what works. As a 4 line, you'll be infectious and you'll want to inspire action. With a 5 line, you're a general, so you'll have a broad perspective and be very strategic. As a 6 line, you'll be the administrator. You'll stand at a distance and be great at planning. Tony's gate has the 6th line, so his leadership style is administrative. That fits with the rest of his chart where his single definition and high level of independence mean he won't want to get caught up in the weeds of leadership. Tony doesn't have gate 31 at the other end of the channel. And without that, your leadership power will be more like you're the chief advisor to the leader. You're still in control, but probably not recognized directly as the leader. The last thing I want to talk about is how Tony challenges authority. Even as a 10-year-old, he was already giving his science teacher trouble because he wouldn't stop talking in class. and even spent a whole weekend learning the textbook just so he'd shout answers out in class. But it's that same attitude that's helped him when he wanted to get into Dr. Richard Bandler's NLP classes. And when he wanted to work for Jim Rohn, he had to find a way of loaning $1,000 from a bank, all at a time when he was living out of a car parked outside a 7-Eleven. But he managed it by working the banks until they gave him the money. So looking at his root center, he's got gate 58, the gate of vitality. This gate loves to challenge the existing way of doing things, simply for the fun of it. You want things to be better, and you aren't afraid to shake up some things on your way. Over in the solar plexus, Tony has gate 49, the gate of revolution. This is a gate all about taking down any unhealthy system so you can help your community to thrive. This gate is different to gate 58 because it comes from a place of understanding what's going to help your community thrive. So it's more focused than gate 58, which is about challenging authority for the fun of it. One last thing is that Tony said he doesn't meditate. He says he wants to move with speed, and meditating just slows him down. The fact he has an undefined ajna is going to be the reason for that. Thoughts are not getting trapped in his mind there. But either way, remember that being massively successful, helping millions of people either directly or through his charitable foundations, and flying around in a massive private jet, is all possible without having to meditate and do what everyone else tells you to do. So a big thanks to Tony for showing what's possible. Thanks for watching.